Hello again, college football fans. I got your Week 11 SEC Power Rankings hot off of the presses. And here we go. Number 14, Vanderbilt. This is your father's Vanderbilt team. And, some things just always stay the same. And I find that comforting. I don't know about you folks, but Vanderbilt, with a stronghold on the last place in the SEC, makes me feel like, some things still make sense, and I've still got a little bit of knowledge about how to navigate through this world, because Vanderbilt is the last place team in the SEC, and I don't see them getting a conference win, because who do they have left? They got Tennessee. They've still got to play Kentucky, I believe. Yeah, they don't have another win left in the SEC, so they're probably gonna wind up here. Number 13, we got Missouri. They played a little bit better against Georgia, but 13 and 14 are definitely probably the most steady positions that we've had all season. Number 12, Florida. There's nothing more to say. I think everybody's pretty much turned on Dan Mullen at this point. He may not make it to next season. I think he will, because first of all, who are they going to get? And secondly, I don't think it doesn't seem like a head coach problem at Florida. I joked around about somehow I blame this on Urban Meyer, but I mean, since Urban Meyer got there, Spurrier left Florida in a very good shape. Ron Zook was not a good coach, but he was a great recruiter. I mean, Urban Meyer won a national title 2 years in with Zook's recruits. But ever since Urban had a breakdown. McElwain's had a breakdown. Seems like Will Muschamp broke down. And looks like Mullen is another one in a long line of just Florida coaches just busting for whatever reason. And the fact that he was such a steady presence at Mississippi State for so many years, and that's not an easy place to coach. It just something tells me that this is a bigger deal than just the football program. Something's up in Florida. We may never know. Number 11, I got LSU. They beat Florida, so they get this. They get the benefit of not being in that bottom three, which is the bottom of the barrel. But LSU's close. They're hovering around. Number 10, South Carolina. What an impressive victory, 40-17. Unless the Florida thing continues to just spiral out of control, you probably won't ever see another South Carolina victory over Florida that resounding. Shane Beamer, he's one win away from taking this team to a bowl, and they got Missouri this week. They better pick up that win over Missouri, because then after that it gets pretty difficult for South Carolina. But again, I got to tip my cap to Mr. Beamer, because I think he's done just about as good a job than anybody could have expected at South Carolina. And if it wasn't for Heupel at Tennessee, he would probably be your SEC Coach of the Year. Mississippi State, I got in at number 9. I put them below Kentucky, even though they beat Kentucky, because they got a bad Memphis non-conference loss. I don't think Kentucky's got quite that bad of a loss on their resume, but that can flip-flop one way or the other. And Kentucky did manage to get some back-to-back wins over LSU and Florida, which was big at the time. Things happen and teams become less formidable as seasons roll on. But both of those teams still had aspirations for decent seasons at the time Kentucky got them, so you can't take that away from them. And but this is probably the ceiling for Kentucky. Number 8, I don't see them moving up much higher in the power rankings as the season goes on, because they've still got a lot of work left to do on their schedule. They're already a bowl eligible team, but if they want to get into that 8-9 win territory, they're going to have to gird their loins, as we like to say. Number 7, I got Tennessee, the surprise team. I would love to put them in the top half of the league, but unfortunately, you got Georgia and a bunch of pretty decent SEC Western Division schools ahead of them. But, they got a big chance to make a huge splash this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if they found their way into that top half of the league before it's all over with. Number 6, Arkansas. They got a big win over Mississippi State a couple days ago, and they've still got a really good non-conference win over Texas A&M. That win keeps getting better and better looking for them as the season goes along. They've still got they've got to play Ole Miss later in the season, so they've got chances I think they've still got LSU. They got LSU this week, I believe. So they've still got chances to for Sam Pittman to keep them in a position. September was a dream for them. They were the talk of the whole nation at that point. And then, at the end of September, they had Georgia and Green Day waiting for them to sort of wake them up and bring them back to reality a little bit. But Sam Pittman, if he can get a strong, that win over Mississippi State has put him in a position to where he can make a very strong push at the end of the season. And he'll be in line for the SEC Coach of the Year as well if he can get a nice strong finishing stretch here for the Razorbacks. Number 5, I've got Ole Miss. Even though that Auburn loss was big for them, and they didn't look all that great against Liberty, but they did get the victory over a pretty good non-Power 5 program, Liberty. But number 5 might be the ceiling for them as well, because most of their heavy lifting they've already got behind them. They do still have Texas A&M to deal with, and I believe that is this week actually. And that's a huge game for the West. If they can get healthy on the offensive side of the ball, their defense it hasn't really improved, but since that first game at Louisville, you could see that it wasn't quite the just dish rag that it was last year. So, they can still make a couple of splashy moves before the season's over with. And they're still in line for Sugar Bowls, that pretty decent non-playoff bowl destinations. They've still got that if they want to go out and get them. Number 4, Auburn. After they lost as badly as they lost, they didn't look very good against Texas A&M. But Texas A&M, they've really, really beefed up their resume since they got that shocker against Alabama. So losing in an ugly way to Texas A&M is really not enough right now to drop Auburn out of the top 4 spot. And number 3, I got Texas A&M. And I was flirting with putting them at number 2, but, they still do have losses to Mississippi State and Arkansas, which aren't the worst. But if I was going to put them ahead of Bama, then you got to think, well, Bama's only loss is coming to the team that I'm flirting with making number 2 by 3 points, a walk-off field goal. So when you get to the top 2, Georgia's undeniable. Their resume is better than anybody in the countries right now, and so they're a runaway number 1. But 2 and 3, I did kind of tinker with the notion of putting Texas A&M ahead of Bama because they look better than Bama right now. They just do. They beat them, and in the last couple of weeks, obviously they looked a lot better than Bama yesterday against a much tougher opponent, in my opinion, in Auburn. But they've still got those 2 back-to-back losses hanging over their head. But you got to think, man, Jimbo's got to be tossing and turning at night thinking, if he didn't have to deal with a quarterback crisis early in the season, they could be looking at an undefeated season going down to the stretch here. But, it is what it is. And the game, that's just part of the game. So he knows that. And So, number 2, Bama. Where else are you going to put them right now? They do still have a pretty good resume. They've got blowout wins over Ole Miss, Mississippi State, which are still decent teams. Blowout win over Tennessee, which, it did wind up being a blowout. I know it took a while for him to get to that point. It was still a close game going into the fourth quarter, but it wound up being a blowout. So, you got to credit them with that. But, they don't look like a very intimidating team right now at number 2 in the SEC power rankings, but that's where they're at. And number 1, Georgia, I've praised them a lot. I've been critical of their offense and the strength of their schedule, and that's still a question mark for me. And but they're going to get a chance to prove themselves. Big game with Tennessee coming up this week. But the more I think about that, the more I think, it doesn't really matter if Tennessee is able to figure out how to score some points against Georgia's defense, because Georgia's offense, Tennessee's defense is not good enough right now to keep Georgia from pretty much doing what they want to do against them. So you can worry about Tennessee's offense all day long if you're Georgia, but Georgia is not going to lose that ball game. They're going to go into Atlanta undefeated, and they're going to be poised to bring home the big trophy. And a lot of people will say Alabama's the only thing that will stand in their way, and that remains to be seen, because it's late in the season now. And if Alabama had the game they had against LSU early in the season, then I would say that there's still time to fix those mistakes. But I think at this point in the second week of November, teams are what they are. And the good news is Bama has been inconsistent. So if they decide to limp through the remainder of their season, if they can figure out how to get those wins and go to Atlanta, there's a chance that they can step up and play like a different team. They need to. I've decided that since the season has gone like it's gone, Nick Saban just needs to somehow get Alabama to pretend like every team that they're playing is from Mississippi, because those 2 games are by far and away the best they've looked. So just, New Mexico State, they're a Mississippi school, so is Arkansas and Auburn, and let's just get this over with and get to Atlanta and see if Georgia really is what everybody thinks that they are. But there's your power rankings, and I will have the predictions for Week 11 coming up very soon. Thanks for watching.